All right, so now that we've got all this information, we need to start identifying what is important off of it and what does some of this information mean. And in the last video, I alluded some of that important information like rainfall and like frost-free period. Some of that parent material is important because a lot of times it's the parent material that's going to lead to the amount of nutrients that's in the soil. So knowing your parent material is going to be important, and the soil profile, that typical soil profile. Knowing all that is important. Another thing that's very important for agricultural production is knowing your land capability classification. So it lists the irrigated as 3E and the non-irrigated as 4E. Well, what does that mean? Well, we need to dive into that and figure that out. So here we're going to actually go to another website. We're going to go to another website actually by the NRCS again, and this is listed in Moodle under the soil classification. So if we click on that soil classification, it brings up this lovely website by the NRCS. And if you see right here, you can follow those breadcrumbs. It's actually under the home page, these technical resources, natural resource assessment, and then you can get into land capability class by state 1997. But what we're looking for primarily is these definitions. So the land capability classes and subclasses. You're going to need to read through this because it's going to talk about what does each class mean and what does those subclasses mean. So for example, on that irrigated land for the ranch campus, it's listed as a class 3. So class 3 soils have severe limitations that reduce the choice of plants or require special conservation practices or both. So we know that this soil now is going to be limited on the choice of plants, and it's going to require very careful management. So this soil is going to be an intense management soil. We now know that because it falls in that class 3. We said if it was non-irrigated, though, it's a class 4. So what does class 4 mean? Class 4 soils have very severe limitations that restrict the choice of plants or require very careful management. So actually classes 1 through 4 are actually, 1 through 4, those are more suited for agricultural production and crop production, whereas classes 5 through 8, those get into a lot more limitations whenever we're getting into agricultural production. So we're right on that bubble. Now, if you remembered, it was actually class 3E and 4E. So what is that subclass? E. So subclass E is made up for soils for which the susceptibility to erosion is the dominant problem or hazard affecting their use. Erosion susceptibility and past erosion damage are the major soil factors that affect soils in this subclass. So we know that both of those fall in the subclass E. So what does that mean? What do we need to think about whenever we get into these erosion aspects? Well, we're not going to be going out there and just doing like a lot of tilling and a lot of plowing in that kind of aspect. We know that we're going to have some erosion aspects, some erosion problems because of the soil classification. So maybe that we need to think about how are we going to manage this soil if we know it's prone to erosion. One of the key aspects that we might be thinking about is like no-till or planting crops that we're not going to have to actually go up and plow up or anything of that nature, and maybe providing a lot of cover crops. So those are things to think about. And we were able, without ever stepping foot on that place, we were able to look at this, and these soil maps, these soil survey maps are going to give us a lot of key indicators into that aspect. So that's where you're going to find these definitions is under this this land capability class, that link that's provided there on Moodle.